If my sister isn't invited, then we're not coming either. Dad's words cut through the air like I'd committed some kind of crime. The room froze. My fiancé's face went pale with shock, and I just stood there realizing, once again, he had chosen her over me. You'd think after 20 years of being the peacemaker, I'd at least have a voice in my own wedding. But not when it came to her. Hi everyone, my name's Melanie. I'm 32, and I grew up in the shadow of a sister who could set the house on fire and still be handed the last piece of cake. When we were kids, she'd steal my things, lie about it, cry, and somehow I'd be the one punished. She's sensitive, Mom would say. It's just a phase. Dad would sigh. But that phase stretched into 2 decades, and I always played along. I kept the peace. I let her win. Birthdays, she ruined them. Graduation, she caused a scene. Even at my engagement dinner, she wore white, cracked jokes about how long I'd been single, then hijacked the toast to brag about her promotion. Still, I defended her. I told people to be patient, covered for her meltdowns, carried the weight of keeping things calm. Until my wedding became the final battlefield. For once, I drew a line. I told my parents she's not invited. Not after what she did at Grandma's funeral. They looked at me like I'd committed murder. Dad leaned forward, trembling. She's your sister. If she's not there, we won't be either. No hesitation. Not even a blink. I glanced at the guest list, 2 decades of bending over backward. And for the first time, I stood tall. I said, okay then. Dad's face fell. He expected me to plead, to fix it, to cave. But I didn't. I let the silence hang heavy between us. And for the first time, I saw fear flicker in his eyes, not because I pushed them away, but because he realized I might not come running back this time. I didn't cry when they left. I didn't chase them down the driveway. I didn't send desperate explanations. Instead, I crossed out 4 names: Mom, Dad, my sister, and her long-term boyfriend, who, by the way, still owes me $900 from a family emergency 5 years ago. My fiancé, Ethan, watched me closely like I was glass, unsure if I'd shatter or finally hold strong. Are you okay? He whispered. I nodded, better than I've felt in years, because what they never understood was this. Every time I let her win, every time I swallowed my truth for their comfort, pieces of me disappeared, until there was barely anything left of me to invite to my own wedding. The next day, the calls started. First, Mom, voicemails that twisted between guilt and manipulation. Melanie, this isn't you. You're tearing the family apart. Then Dad, cold, clipped, call me when you're ready to be reasonable. But I was done being the reasonable one. I'd spent my life picking up pieces, apologizing for chaos I didn't cause, sacrificing holidays, swallowing birthdays, smiling through wounds no one could see, wounds that carved into who I was. Then Ethan said something that stuck. You're not losing your family. You're losing the people who never acted like one. That night, we finalized the seating chart. Table 5, for the friends who became my true siblings. Table 6, for Ethan's aunts, who once sent me handwritten letters after graduation. And the head table, just us. No drama. No fake apologies. No ghosts pretending to love me in exchange for silence. And while the outside world spun in chaos, mine finally stood still. I understood. Sometimes the loudest betrayal is broken silence. Choosing yourself makes more noise than their empty toasts ever could. The wedding was perfect. Not glossy magazine perfect. Not staged for Instagram perfect. But soul deep. Belly laugh through tears perfect. No fake smiles. Just light streaming through stained glass windows in the old library we rented. My dress, simple, off-white, nothing like the flashy gowns my sister mocked me for when we were kids. And as I walked down the aisle, each step felt like reclaiming something she'd tried to take my whole life. Ethan cried, not for show, not for photos, but with tears that came from seeing every version of me. Even the ones I was told to hide, and still saying I do. But during dinner, my cousin Lily tapped me on the shoulder, her face uneasy. Hey, your parents are outside. I laughed. A genuine laugh. They're not invited. She nodded. I know, but they're standing across the street, watching. Through the frosted glass, I saw them, Mom in her pearls, Dad with arms crossed, and my sister in white again, like this was her big redemption scene. They didn't barge in or cause a scene. They just stared, like they still believed I'd come running out to fix everything. "Do you want me to say something?" Lily asked. I shook my head. No, let them watch. Because that's all they ever did. Watch me bend. Watch me fold. Watch me disappear. And cheer for her spotlight. But now, I was center stage, and I wasn't performing for them anymore. So I raised my glass to the family I chose, to the girl I rebuilt, to the woman who stopped begging for a seat and built her own table instead. As their shadows faded behind the glass, I danced. Not for their eyes, but for my own freedom. 2 days later, the guilt campaign began. An envelope slid under our apartment door. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Mom's. Inside, "You've humiliated this family. Your sister hasn't stopped crying. Your father says he doesn't even recognize you anymore. No apology. No accountability. Just shame, dressed as disappointment." I left it on the counter without a word. Ethan glanced at it, then at me. "She's trying to pull you back in," he whispered. "Don't go." And I didn't. But I did remember how many notes I'd written them over the years. Birthday cards for a dad who never asked how my life was going. Get well letters for a mom who never noticed when I was falling apart. Apologies after my sister's tantrums, always starting with, "I'm sorry you're upset." They taught me love meant endurance, but they never expected the girl who endured would eventually evolve. Later that week, I posted a photo, me and Ethan on the dance floor, heels in one hand, head thrown back in laughter. The caption, "Peace looks good on me." A few hours later, I got a message request. "My cousin Ava, just 14, but wiser than most adults. You look so happy. I wish I could have been there. I'm sorry for how they treated you." That message meant more than 100 fake family hugs. Because sometimes the truest family isn't the one you're born into, it's the one you choose. And I finally chose myself. Sparkles, if you connected with this story, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more. You don't always get justice from the ones who hurt you. It comes from those who watched, who chose to learn what not to become. Like Ava. She was already breaking the cycle just by seeing me choose peace. That's when I realized my legacy wasn't silence. It was a blueprint. A week passed, then another. The quiet from my parents didn't feel peaceful. It was calculated. I knew that move too well. And sure enough, the trap appeared, right on cue. A Facebook post from Mom. Public. Polished. Poison dressed as prayer. Weddings are meant to unite, not divide. We raised both our daughters to love each other. It breaks our hearts to be left out of moments we should have shared. We pray for healing. The comments poured in. "Sending love, Auntie. Families fight, but blood is forever. You'll be back together soon. You deserve better than this, Linda." And just like that, the story flipped. The villains put on the costume of victims. They knew exactly what they were doing, painting me cold, ungrateful, heartless to every cousin, neighbor, ex-church friend, and grocery store auntie who'd listen. I didn't respond, but I screenshotted everything. Because some storms are better documented than denied. The hardest part wasn't the lies. It was realizing how many people wanted to believe them. People who'd seen me interrupted at every dinner, talked over at reunions, blamed whenever my sisters spiraled at someone else's success. People who'd watched me shrink and mistook it for peacekeeping. So, I did something I never thought I would. I wrote my own post, private, only for close friends and family. I didn't exclude my sister out of malice. I did it to survive. For 20 years, I was the family's cushion, absorbing every blow to keep the peace. This year, I chose to protect my peace. If that makes me the villain in someone else's story, so be it. I finally became the main character in mine. No hashtags, no emojis, just truth. And the silence that followed. This time it felt different. Not guilt, power shifting. And once I felt that shift, there was no going back. A month after the wedding, my sister finally reached out. Not a call, not her voice, just a gray bubble on a screen. "Happy now. You've officially turned everyone against me. Hope your little fairy tale was worth it." No greeting, no reflection, just blame wrapped in bitterness. I stared at it, my thumb hovering over reply. Not because I had something to say, but because part of me still craved explaining. That part, the old Melanie, was addicted to justification. She survived on the approval of people who didn't even respect her silence, let alone her voice. But I buried her the day I said I do. Instead, I typed one word. Healed. No punctuation. No emotion. Just truth. And I blocked her. When Ethan walked in as I tossed my phone aside, he asked softly, "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, I think I am." Because healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet moment you realize their chaos no longer owns your breath. That same night, I got an unexpected call from Aunt Rosa, the only one who'd ever whispered at gatherings, "You don't deserve this. I see what they're doing." At the wedding, she'd stayed neutral. Sent a gift. No sides. But now, her voice trembled through the phone. "Mel, your post, your story, it made me see how much we've all enabled. I'm sorry I didn't say more." I sat down, heart racing. Not because I needed her apology, but because I never thought I'd hear one. "I've started therapy," she continued. "You inspired me. That's when it hit me. My silence never changed them, but my boundaries lit fires in places they thought would stay cold forever. Because healing isn't revenge. It's refusing to let pain recycle itself through you. And that refusal, it becomes a ripple, a mirror, a movement. Weeks turned into months. The guilt faded. The group chat that once consumed me grew silent, like a house that finally accepted its last tenant had moved out. And in that quiet, something new grew. Peace, yes, but also clarity. I looked back, not to reopen wounds, but to trace where they began. Like when I was 10 and won a spelling bee. But Dad took us for ice cream because my sister cried about losing her pencil case. Or my 18th birthday dinner, canceled because she had a migraine. It was never about me. I was the placeholder, the responsible one, the glue, until one day I melted, and they blamed me for the mess. But the truth? I didn't break the family. I was just the first one brave enough to stop pretending it wasn't already broken. One afternoon, Ethan found me sorting through old boxes, photos, letters, handmade cards from a girl who thought love could be earned if she just tried harder. He sat beside me as I held up a photo of myself at 7, smiling, hopeful, still unaware she'd spend decades walking on eggshells in her own home. "What would you tell her now?" he asked. I stared at her. My throat caught, but I spoke. I'd tell her she's not too much, not selfish, not wrong for wanting peace. And one day, she'll stop apologizing for shining. Ethan slid the photo into a new frame. We placed it on our bookshelf beside our wedding album, a reminder of who I was and who I refused to become. Because sometimes revenge isn't fire or fury. It's healing so loudly they can't pretend not to hear it. And then, the one I never thought would hear it did. Last week, a letter arrived. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Dad's. I held it for a long time. The old me would have ripped it open, heart racing, already rehearsing my reply. But the new me, she waited. Ethan sat beside me as I finally opened it. It was short. "Melanie, I've read your post a dozen times." I didn't want to believe it. But maybe you're right. Maybe we failed you. Maybe I let her become what she is because I was too afraid to face the damage. I don't know how to fix this, but I miss you. And if you ever come back, I'll listen this time. No excuses. Just me. Dad. I folded it gently. Ethan asked, "Do you want to write back?" I thought about all the letters I wrote in my head as a child, begging to be seen, to be chosen. And now here it was. But I realized forgiveness didn't need to live in a reply. It lived in my boundaries, in the life I built, in the silence I no longer feared. Because poetic justice doesn't always come with grand apologies. Sometimes it looks like this. A daughter finally being understood, but no longer needing to be. I tucked the letter in a drawer, not to frame, not to reread, but as a reminder. I broke the pattern. My children will never mistake silence for love. They'll never confuse peace with suppression. They'll see a woman who chose her worth over tradition, and won. I looked at Ethan, smiling. No need to write back. I already said everything by living. He kissed my forehead, whispered, "I'm proud of you." And for the first time in my life, so was I.